police pulled in front of us,
Yep,
remember?
that's it.
And he was interviewing,
Yeah.
and I said, those are your people, right? I'm so glad that's on there. That we are saying to the police, the sergeant, hey man, your people doing this. All of these demonstrations and all of these burnings and all of that stuff, that's y'all's folks, man, doing that. That's not the people.
And when you told him, he did not deny.
Of course he
did
did.
not
Yeah, he
deny.
just looked.
Yep.
Next question, let's go on to the
Right.
to number 13. And they went right on.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I laid that out for the brother. He said, well, why would they do that? I said, they would do that because every now and then tension builds up in the society, and they want to build up something, and it's a controlled mechanism. That means they control the incident, they control the environmental circumstances, they open it up. I said, all of the steam that build up, I say, if they have, you can run a locomotive with a steam engine if you manage the steam. But if you just open the valve and all the steam goes all up in there and blows away, there's no power.
Right.
Got steam, right? But it don't push anything, it don't drive anything. I said, you could tell, I was telling him, you could tell where these things are going by the history of demonstrations, the environmental circumstances. Now remember, we said this was going to happen on day one, but we waited maybe a week or two before we said it publicly. But we said right away, no, this is what they're going to do, this is what it's going. Why? Because we want to make sure what we're saying having validity. We don't want to just jump up and say, I've seen this before 1,000 times. I've been in that movie. Okay, good. So we make it clear amongst ourselves. We talked about it when we was going down there, you know,
Yeah.
carrying the thing. Yeah, this is what they're going to do. Okay? But we waited for them to do it. We waited for them to build up the momentum. After a couple of days, they slowed down on the burning and everything, right?
Yeah.
Because the families were saying one thing, and then everybody was talking about Antifa, this, that, and the other, and so everybody was watching.
Right, yeah.
Everybody was watching.
Everybody knew who was doing the burn.
Yeah, everybody was watching. Hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You guys are not with us, and you're riding on motorbikes to burn this down, and you ride to the next street to burn that, and you would see the news following those garbage cans. I don't know, up in New York.
Yeah, up in New
I don't
York,
know if
yeah.
you was following it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I used to see the clips. If you would just go to CNN, they would just have
Yeah,
front and center, garbage can on fire. Just
exactly. And that's all, forget the demonstration. Then the guys was on bikes.
just to don't
This
get
is
fired.
too organized, right? Organization is organized and is funded by someone up in the sky. So, brother was asking me, it was not only him, but see, in Iran, they want this to be a false narration, to be true. What about the statues that they're pulling down and what have you? And what about even George Washington? I said, that is just child's play. There's no substance to it. I said, technically, they have a right to have their statues of General Lee and all that. And he was, when he was here, he lived over in Virginia, so he knows white folks over there. I said, when you was over in Virginia, I said, when you visited white folks, right, you was here a long time, yeah, I said long. I said, when you visited white folks, did you see gun racks in their houses? He said, yeah, they all had gun racks. I said, right. Did you visit any Negro houses? Yeah, I went with all the brothers. said, you see any gun racks in anybody, black people's houses? You know, now, in Virginia, I'm sure there are some blacks, hunters and all that.
Yeah.
But when you want to see guns, you go to see the white folks' house. So I told them that this was all a Hollywood production. But this was a Hollywood production, and he couldn't get it. He just couldn't get it. He says, well, why would they do that? And then I would go back and I would tell him again. I said, because they want to start interracial problems between the people. But they want to control it. That's when I told him they were only 30% successful with what they wanted to do. I said they failed on all the major stuff, they failed. And I told him about Adolf Hitler's speech, you know, in which Donald Trump paraphrased his speech almost exactly like he was reading it from Mein Kampf or something. So he started beginning to pick it up. But I said, no, they start the problem and then they have the solution already packaged up. It's a package deal. I said, America is like that. I said, you're not going to have, and I told him about nonviolent resistance, about white people's view that you cannot have a pyramid-type movement here in America, that there are some people who have websites and they write literature, and the people that follow them get hints from them. They don't call them on the phone, they don't meet them, but they get hints from their website. And they direct people because they believe that that's the only way that you can do it. So if white people feel that way, imagine how we feel. Because see, remember, they only get the stuff after they done burned us out before they, you know what I mean? Before they done lynched us, ran around the corner. We have been destroyed way before it hits the white nationalist movements. Okay. I call this false narrative number 2 because there's a serious push. That narrative that we have is deadly. Nobody, that system don't like this narrative. They don't like us talking.
Right.
They, not only they don't like it, they're upset to send one of my homeboys from overseas to here to go through this and try to, you got to remember the narrative. Remember how enthusiastic the guys was from Iran, and I told you he was a big TV producer.
Yeah.
And he couldn't wait. He would call you, me, everybody over and over again. Then he don't call me. You don't hear nothing from him. One of the things was the narrative. He told me how I saw into their eyes and I saw something new. That's what he wanted to tell the Iranians. I told the guy yesterday, don't you tell them that. That's not the truth. I said, what I'm telling you is the truth. And I said, you tell the Iranian people that they are shaking up the world. You tell them because they're thinking about how bad things are, how the economy is going, how this, and they don't know that the whole world is watching them. And they're influencing the whole world. They are, the people of Iran. But you know, when you're going through that, you think, I gotta feed my child today, we gotta have some bread, you know, right, all that. And that's what they're thinking about. A lot. The good leaders, like I told the brother, I said, don't y'all remember when I was here with y'all, how I used to go around to every university and I used to motivate you guys. I said I would motivate you because I knew what you were going through. And nobody ever mentioned what I should say to you. I always studied and said the right thing for where you guys is at. I said, it's simple. You guys here, young Iranian students, carrying pictures of Imam Khomeini and yelling Mark America, death to America, right? And we done already went through, and you didn't have the Tobias expedition, that's what all the helicopters trying to raid Iran, crashing each other. I said, you done put their homeboy, the Shaw, out, and you done ruined their whole program in the Middle East. And they done started an 8-year war with you, and you're in the middle of that war, and you don't have no friends. None. And all the Americans, especially the Negroes, you don't have to worry about that. They the police. Of course they was. Everybody knows it now. I mean, the ones that was here, the ones that was, you know. When I came here, I had one of the main things I wanted to know first. I didn't tell nobody. I said that I came here to get the game, to learn everything that I hadn't learned in Oakland. Which in Oakland, I had the game. When I got here, I was already packed up all the way up, and just a little bit left to where you're never full all the way, so you're still evolving, but, you know, anyway. So I told him, I said, no, I came here because I knew they was going to open up with everything. They did. I said, one of the things that I wanted to know first was which Americans worked with in the Daftar down there with the Iranians. And they didn't know I was coming, but guess what? By that time, most of the African Americans had followed the Iranians out to Gaithersburg. Remember, the Iranians are immigrants, so they move out there. They're not going to stay in D.C. They just naturally move where, you know.
There's less of us.
Yeah, where their education, they all went to school, they're all educated. Yeah. They all have middle class and up jobs, right? So where they're going to go? They're going to go to Gaithersburg. So, and then they got the big IAC out there in Potomac. It's natural for them. Anyway. So, we was telling our brother that is a false narrative that y'all want to hear. I said, you have to have courage to tell the people in Iran the truth. You tell them just what I'm telling you. What I'm telling you, you tell them. You got to have the courage. You want to tell them that America, he said, well, it must be something they're tearing down statues and I said, they're tearing down statues. I said, our belief is what we said. They should be able to keep their statues, not just billions of them. But you keep, suppose in a few years they don't know who Lee Highway is named after. You know the one goes to Richmond? Lee Highway. Yeah. Suppose they don't know?
Right. I made the mistake. I was talking, my car broke down that way once.
Right.
And I got on the phone with the tow guy. I was like, yeah, I'm out here on, no, not Lee Highway. This was near Jeff Davis.
Jeff Davis.
Jeff Davis. And I think it's now Richmond Highway. Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, I'm by Jeff Davis Highway. And the guy paused. He was like, you mean Richmond Highway? Right, yeah, Richmond Highway.
Yeah, well, look, all those, I told the brother, I said, you were living in Northern Virginia. Do you know the greatest army in the Confederacy was the Army of Northern Virginia? Jeb Stuart High School over there is after General Jeb Stuart that put more white folks than anybody else in the South almost. Stonewall Jackson, all of them people, all those names. Robert E. Lee is from right down the street. Robert E. Lee lived right across the thing right there for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, Arlington Cemetery.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was his house before the Civil War.
Okay.
He had a house, big house, right? You could throw a rock at it. Robert E. Lee. Anyway, the point was that I wanted to let him know that all the things that they're watching is a false narrative. Did you see TV last night? Any TV, what was the name of it? CNN. They had Professor Griffiths. He said something so-called anti-Semitic. And then,
I missed that again.
no, you should. I almost turned it off.
I'm gonna go look this up.
No, these are, yeah, just put CNN, put Professor Griffith,
God,
and
they still on that
anti-Semitic statements.
Oh,
Professor Griffith, here, and it was on CNN, and it was that guy, Jack Lehman, and they had the other people. The narrative was so sickening that somebody pitches the ball over the plate to those people so they can comment on what the Negroes said, but those Negroes are their Negroes. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
Those Negroes.
Yeah, I see the one. Okay, so Nick Cannon was apparently doing that, and Professor
that's
Griffith.
it.
What happened? What?
It's ridiculous, but you see now, okay, that's last night.
Yeah, it's just like I'm looking at 13 hours ago. Yeah.
Okay, that's last night. That means that
One day ago.
the Negroes, they're changing the narrative now. Remember, no more, the Negroes got too much publicity down there with Black Lives Matter.
Right.
Who gets jealous of that? The Jews, the Israelis. And all of a sudden, Negroes, for no reason, are making anti-Zionist or let's call it anti-Jewish statements. And they're forcing them to apologize.
Right.
False narrative, they changing the narrative.
Yeah.
They changing the whole, they changed it, this done. That's a done deal. And I was telling him, I said, they changed the doggone narrative. By the time he finished interviewing me and I went on and turned on the news, I almost felt so sick I was going to turn it off. But I have to watch it because I have to give a talk about it. A false narrative. That's why this is false narrative number 2. The longer we do this, the more you see how everything, pretty soon, everything will look as though it's manufactured in Washington, D.C., right? Because you begin to think which news program is true and which one is arranged, right? Which demonstration emerges out of the people's desire to demonstrate, which ones are manufactured, right? Yeah, the more experience you have, the more you see it. The people don't know that. They don't know that.
Yeah.
If they have the Women's March, they think that is a women's march. Women produce it. May God bless them. Their wonderful work for pulling that off. Right? That's what they think. We don't think that. We saw all those people. Well, how can those people pop up? Pop. Mobilization and organization. Remember that. They mobilize them, but they're not organized to do nothing. They don't do nothing. They come, they yell, they run around, they pull their pants down and holler, and then that's it. They're gone. Nothing. Okay. That's part of our job, to do exactly what we're doing now. Okay. The other people, whatever they're hired to do, whatever they are about, that's their business. But this is part of our job, to show these Hollywood productions and the teams of Negroes that they got remember, they got teams of people already waiting in the wings. And they got, okay, what's the play right now? Just like playing a football game or something like that. They got different plays for the game is going along. Okay, it's not going the way we want. Well, call in so-and-so. Right? Who we going to call in? Call in him. Get off the bench. Come on in. Right? Do we need a psychological approach? Call them on in. Right? They got the whole roster of possibilities. Right. If it go according to the way they want, run it. But it's never going to go like that. So as they move along, they're going to bring in people, right? They're going to incorporate people because we need to, this is the fourth quarter, and the game's almost over, and we got so much time left in this. Yeah. So we want to bring them in to close this deal off, to run that play. And that's with everything. It could be an economic play. It could be a psychological play. Imagine they got this whole team of people there, and they can pull off anything they want. Suppose the government wanted to open a masjid anywhere, 5 blocks, anywhere. Just call it anywhere. It could get an old church, right? Move the people out of that church to the big giant church out in Missoula somewhere, right? They could do that. And they could open a masjid right down the street. Right. And they could have it full within 2-3 hours. 5 daily prayers, every day, all day, Imam giving a talk. You walk in there like it's been there for years, right? They can do that. They have the ability to do that right this minute. Okay. I'll get to that later because part of our mission is to encourage some of the people within the system to do that type of thing, but except for good. Yeah. Remember, we got a big mission. This is not a little bitty teenage mission. And are people paying attention to us? Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. But this is pay attention for a great cause. You know, you have certain characteristics.